want to thank you for showing up. I've come a long, long way to be here. I've come 83 years to be here with you tonight. And I feel a spider web's link with every one of you, one way or the other. We're sort of related. When you come to a reading, you usually expect you're going to have a poetry reading. I'm going to disappoint you. I'm going to read one poem. And then I'm going to read stories. Because in reality, I'm not a poet. I've never considered myself. I've written a poetry book. And I've written about a bit of poetry, which is pretty good, if I say so myself. But I'm not a poet. I'm a writer. I'm not even a writer. I'm a storyteller. And after all my life, I've told stories. And I've told them once, and I've told them twice, and every time I tell them, there's a flower added here, and a ribbon added here, and the next thing you know, it's complete. And from then on, the story is identical every time. Every time. And what's wonderful about this is that the people who have never heard the joke before will laugh, if you know what I mean. In other words, I will relive the space that I was in at the time. Do you follow? By telling it, I relive, I am there. And that's maybe one of the reasons why the people who are on the other end of this are there a little bit too. And that's my hope anyway. So, I'll read you one poem to start with. Where am I? Am I here? I lost my reading glasses. I don't know where. So this is just the magnifying glasses. I want to read you how I feel right now. What fortune mine! I feel so blessed. There's a fire in the stove and wood on the pile. There's fruit in my garden and the hens are laying. The water is water in my well, milk in the fridge, bread in the oven, and love in my bed. There's mail in the mailbox and a dog at my feet. There are lilacs and roses and lilies of the valley and big redwood trees to remind me of my mortality. There's an ocean out there that I see every day with new eyes as it changes with the tides. There are threads to linked ones, dear ones who have come from my seed, as beautiful as any poem I have ever written. And it all comes together like a great big tapestry of wonder and awe, and most of all, of love. For my story, I have to take you with me, which means I'd like you to get into the space with me. I'm going to take you to the tropics. You see, in 1975, I went to Bali on a spiritual, by myself, on a spiritual quest that's happened with me in my life. And I spent several months in Bali, and I'm very good with languages, so I picked up quite a bit of it. And I lived with a Balinese family, and when I say Balinese family, we're talking about 80 or 100 or more people. Uncles, grandaunts, great-grandfather, and so forth. And I was along, and I worked in the rice fields with them, and I went to their temples. So I want you to be there with me, because I'm going to give you an excerpt of something that happened there. So try and feel the warmth of the humid air of the tropics, and maybe the smell of Kretek cigarettes, if that means anything, and maybe little sounds of the gamelan orchestra. Bum, 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 bum. And one day, see, I realized that I had not had a conversation with anyone in a long time. I mean a Western style conversation, one in which I did not have to strain an ear to understand or consult a mental dictionary to be understood. I felt a sudden longing for that kind of exchange. So I took a bimo to the village that I had spent my first few nights in. I remembered that there were tourists and travelers there, and I needed some company. So in Kuta, I sat by the side of the road in a cafe, drinking coconut juice and watching 3 Australians to one side talking about surfboards and motorcycles. And on the other side of me was a good-looking young Italian trying to impress an American girl. His name was Riccardo. I found out that he was beautiful. He was in his mid-20s, bare-chested and tanned, with black hair slicked down with oily hair lotion, and he took his role as an Italian lover very seriously. I chuckled inside at the way he looked at the girl and flirted with her with greatly exaggerated Italian accent. He seemed vain and conceited, and I found him somewhat obnoxious. That evening, while walking down the path down toward my hut, I encountered a familiar aroma, one I had not smelled in a long time. Someone, somewhere, was smoking pot. Ooh, I followed my nose into this thatched-roof, dirt-floor cafe, where this heavy-set German guy was standing by the bar talking with the Balinese owner and holding a joint. "Excuse me," I said to him, I haven't smoked glass in a long time. Do you think I could get a hit from you?" "Oh, sure," he said, and he passed it to me, adding, "It's Sumatran." Well, I'm not much of a pot smoker, but I've smoked quite a bit of everything, like from Panama Red to Acapulco Gold to Maui Wowie to Comchi Killer, if you remember any of that. So I paid no attention to what he said, and I took a few hits, and we talked for a while, and then I thanked him and left. Well, I walked down the path feeling a little high, and suddenly it hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I had never tripped on anything, and I felt like this was tripping. I could hear my heart beating in my ears, and a powerful fear gripped me. I was going to die. I was dying, and I was afraid. And I was alone. Panic. Some distance ahead, I saw the flickering light of an alcohol lamp, and I walked into this cafe, and sitting there was Ricardo, leaning into this English girl's face and flirting into it in heavily accented, flowery language. I was desperate. There was no one else. In any case, I didn't know anyone I could turn to in my frightened state, so I walked up to him. I said, Ricardo, please, I need you. I just smoked some Sumatran and I'm dying. I'm sorry if I didn't know how he would respond. "Oh, all right, it's all right," he said with compassion, and turning to his lady friend with urgency. "I have to go. I'm sorry, I have to go. I see you later." "Come," he said to me. "I take care of you. We've got to go outside." I was surprised by his reaction. He recognized my need, and I felt grateful. "I'm dying," I said. Yes, I know, but you can't die inside. You must die outside."
Yeah.
And he walked me outside into the tropical night. It was still warm and humid, and he held my arm and led me to a mat under an elaborately carved stone sculpture of some mythical creature from the Ramayana. I was shaking. "You must lay down," he said, pointing to the mat. "You can't die standing up. You must lay down." It made sense, so I stretched out flat on my back, and the world stopped spinning. "You won't go away, will you, Ricardo? You'll stay with me?" The feeling of imminent death was strong, and the fear of death was overwhelming. You'll stay with me till I'm finished dying?" "Don't worry, I'll stay. And well, that made me feel better. I guess I prejudged Ricardo. He had given up his lady friend to help someone who he didn't know. I was impressed. I looked up at the creature carved into the stone, and it seemed to me to move menacingly, as if death was hovering over me. "I'm afraid," I said. "It's okay," he said. "It's okay to be afraid." I shivered and looked past the carved creature. The sky was lit up with so many stars, and lying there on my back, they seemed so close and gave me a sense of belonging. It was beautiful, and my fear subsided. Ricardo was kneeling next to my side, and it suddenly occurred to me that I, being in my late 40s, Ricardo might think that I'm seriously unhealthy, that I have some concern over my health, so I raised myself up on my elbow, and I said, "Listen, Ricardo, there's nothing wrong with me, you understand? I don't have a heart condition or anything like that." He says, yes, I know. He said, "You're just dying, that's all." "That's right, I'm just dying, that's all." And that's all it was. And I lay on my back and watched Balinese dances in the sky, and felt watched over by and protected by this Italian Ricardo, until my death came and went and left me without fear. Then Ricardo helped me up. "Oh, you okay now?" I said, "Oh, yes, I'm okay, thank you." "You sure?" "Yes, I'm sure. I'm very grateful." I shook his hand warmly, and he turned and went back into the cafe. I knew I had a debt to pay. What I didn't know was how soon. The following afternoon I was walking down the path and I saw Ketut, a young girl I had met and spoken to previously. She was all decked out in a colourful finery. Bagus, Ketut, I said. Imana pergi, where are you going? I am going to Pura temple. You come too. I hesitated. I didn't have a sash, and you don't go to a temple without a sash. I'll have to go back to my hut and get a sash, I told her. She gave me a big smile. All right, I go ahead with procession, but you come, yes, you go down beach, turn left, jalan, jalan, walk, 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 walk. And she waved her hand to show distance, walk, walk, to Pura. I went back, put on a brightly colored sash, and I bought some incense and rice cakes. I put them on a small straw plate, and then I walked toward the beach. On the way, I picked the head of a few bright red flowers and laid them on the plate alongside the incense. I saw the last rays of the sun setting in the ocean and took note of the number of footprints in the sand off to the left. I walked, as Ketut said, and walked, and it got dark. I knew it was a distance, but I had no notion how far walk meant. I must have walked a couple of miles, and the beach was deserted. I was no longer in Kuta, and there were no houses or structures of any kind. But still, there, on the sand, I could just make out the footprints of the procession, and perhaps 50, 60 people who had preceded me, so I continued on. By then, it was pitch black. I could hear the ocean to my right, but I could no longer see it. I began to be worried when, in the far distance, I saw a glimmer of light. I walked toward it, and when I came closer, I saw a woman, vendor, there on the beach, with a table covered with fruit and cakes, and drinks of all kinds. She sat on a small bench by the light of her alcohol lamp. It was strange. Who was she selling to? But I walked over to her. Silakan, please. Dimana Pura? Where is the temple? I asked. Pura, she said. There, and pointed to what looked like a grove of coconut trees a little ways past her. She flashed me a bright smile. She was in her early 20s and wore a flower in her hair, which gave off the sweet scent that seemed to envelop her. I thanked her and proceeded toward the coconut grove. The moment I left the glow of her alcohol lamp, the darkness surrounded me, thick and heavy. I threaded through into the grove and quickly realized that I didn't know where I was going. I decided to turn back and ask her again. Oh, she smiled flirtatiously. You know fine? I show you. And she ran her fingers along my arm and led me into the trees. You're not Balinese, are you? I said to her as she walked. Yes, I'm Balinese, she replied. No, I insisted. You Javanese, right? No, I Javanese. I'm Balinese. Why? I took a deep breath. Balinese, no touch. Javanese touch. Oh, I Balinese, she chuckled. I like touch. You like touch? And she caressed my arm with her hand. Well, yes, I stammered. She smiled. You come my warong after Pura, yes, after temple? I was confused, but I nodded. Through the trees I could see a clearing and the flicker of many lights. There, she pointed. There, Pura. And she turned and disappeared into the darkness. In the clearing, some 50 people were gathered, men, women, and children. Some were sitting in rows on their thongs with their offerings in front of them, chattering. The children were playing, and there was a fair amount of noise up front. Near an elaborate altar, there was the Pamanku, a priest, the toothless old man with a white headless. It was burning incense and cleansing himself with the smoke. I didn't see Ketut, though I'm sure that she was there somewhere. I sat on the ground, placed my offering in front of me, and waited. There didn't appear to be any order and it all seemed so chaotic. People talking, children running and laughing, and nobody sat there impatient. I was waiting like a Westerner. I was waiting for the movie to begin. A few loud voices here and there. The children settled down somewhat. The chatter became down to a whisper. Someone coughed. Then there was a hush. A silence all the more impressive by contrast with the din that had preceded it. I felt a warmth, a communion of spiritual energy gathering. It was powerful and elevating. And I found myself swept up with it. Everyone had lit their incense, purified themselves by bringing the smoke with their hand over their face, and sat there, eyes closed, meditating. I did the same. There was a mighty current of energy swirling in the warm air all around me. It was electrifying, and I felt myself soaring into space, becoming one with all things, flying like a white dove above the trees and landing in a shimmering field of incredibly beautiful flowers after an ecstatic flight. Then I felt a few sprinkles of rain upon my head. It was cool and refreshing, and I bowed under its caress. There were more sprinkles, and I felt blessed and lowered my head still further till my head nearly touched the ground. I had no measure of time, and I have no idea of how long all this took. But when I came out of it, the Pomanku stood over me, his hand still dripping with the holy water. He had come around and sprinkled the participants back to the moment. Seeing me in the fifth row, deeper in meditation with each sprinkle, he came to personally help me back. He nodded and gave me a knowing look, and I was not embarrassed. Everyone started to get up and begin a long walk back to Kuta. A few hands reached for me and helped me to my feet, and we walked hand in hand through the coconut grove to the beach. The moon had come out. It was nearly full and hung over the ocean, shimmering in the water and shedding a bright light on the sand. I was in bliss. I broke with the hands that held me and walked the back of the procession, swirling in the overwhelming emotion of the mystical experience I had just gone through. It all seemed so unreal. A voice shouted into my rapture. I shook my head in an attempt to return to reality and saw the young Balinese woman in front of the table. Come, she repeated and gave me a come here wave with a hand. I don't know what I was doing or what I was responding to, but I let the people walk on and slowly made my way back up to the beach to her alone. She had a straw mat on the floor in front of her table, and I sat down and stared at the ocean. Mao Makam? Want eat? She asked softly. I heard her voice as through a fog. No, thank you, I responded mechanically, not looking at her. Mao Minu? You want drink? I took a deep breath. Tidak? No, and continued staring at the waves breaking on the beach some distance in front of me. Pisang? Banana, she said, and held the banana up to my face. Tidak. Some moments of silence followed as the procession disappeared in the distance and the ocean remained lit under the silver-white moon. Then the question came out of nowhere. Want make love? She said. I was startled. At that time, in that space, that was the last thing I expected to hear, and it quickly brought me back to reality. My first thought was that she was supplementing her income with a little side business. I have no money, I said, dismissing the idea with a shrug. She looked surprised and almost offended. Oh no, she said, love money, no good. Love good. I was still puzzled and I wanted to know more, so I asked, why me? And she reached over and ran her fingers through the hair on my chest and said, bah, goose. With such sensuality, I sat there transfixed. Needless to say, the Balinese have no hair on their chest. Suddenly, she sprung up. Now, you got to picture this. Suddenly, she sprung up. I take things, put away, 10 minutes, come back. We make love, yes? Then, she did an extraordinary thing. She got under the table. And in one swoop, she rose, lifting the table on her head with the whole table with everything on it, bananas, coconut, rice cake, drinks and all. She took the bench in one hand and the lamp in the other and repeated, I take things, put away, 10 minutes, come back, we make love, yes? And she quick stepped toward the coconut grove. So I sat there on the mat, befuddled, staring at the tropical moon. And there was conflict. My mind was enthralled in spirituality, but my body was reacting to a different tune. The scent of her perfume lingered after her, and I couldn't make up my mind. I decided, not to decide. It wasn't up to me. Let the universe play this scene out, I thought to myself, and continued sitting there, both aroused and enraptured. Then, stumbling out of nowhere, comes this blonde-haired American traveler muttering almost incoherently, please help me, I need help. I ate some mushrooms an hour ago and I'm tripping, I can't get it together, I'm scared, could you please help me get back to my little slum, please. And it was all there. The universe had spoken. Of course, I said, of course I'll help you, my friend. Come, we'll walk back to Kuta. But listen, do you mind if we walk a little fast? I'd rather get away from here. Why, yes, well, you wouldn't understand. I smiled and we walked briskly down the beach. That is my story. That's the first of the stories.